this one simple mistake is what I've seen in a lot of different workflows, and I've watched a lot of YouTube videos and in other platforms, and I've seen this over and over again because people make this same mistake in one node and they just sabotage the entire workflow that they created. It also depends on what type of value you're exposing online, but I assume if you're doing it for one node, probably you're doing it for every other node, right? So you're just exposing everything out there. And once anyone has access to your, for example, API key of any platform, to your to the key value that is a secret, by the way. That is why it should be secret. You are giving access to anyone out there, so it's totally up to you how to you can fix that, and it's not that hard. Also assume that when people are teaching you, basically they are doing it for the simplicity, even though I just like 2 clicks or something, but still. But I'm going to show you, by the way, in this video how you can fix that. First, I'm going to show you what you are doing wrong and how they can have access to it. Then I'm going to show you how you can fix it so you won't do the same mistake again in any other workflows and the nodes that you're making. Obviously, the ones that you're doing for the production, for the sake of simplicity, you can maybe go along with it if you're doing it for just testing or something. So let me go here to workflows, my workflows that I've created. This is a simple setup that I've just created. Now you could be making the same mistake in all the different setups, but this is simple workflow that I've just created. So we have our workflow executor. Now it's a manual executor. We click and it executes the workflow. And then I've created a simple HTTP request, and I've used this URL with the get method. Now it's a simple URL, obviously. Now this URL is going to have an output or whatever we do as an input. So basically, it's, you could say, is something to test out the workflow and everything. But you can maybe replace that with anything. So you could maybe add another URL you want. But for the sake of simplicity, I'm just going to go with this one here. And then this is how people are doing it now. This is how you're probably doing right now. Is you are using authentication none. So I'm not gonna have any authentication here, and I'm just gonna go with send body, and the body content is going to be JSON, and specific body is going to be using fields below. Now I'm gonna have a value, and these are the parameters that I'm sending. The body parameters that I'm sending right now is going to be with the name of this one, and this is the value. Now it could be anything. But if you're sending in a body something, this is going to be a parameter and it's going to be super secret. For example, I just given it a name, assuming that it is secret, obviously. So this is how you're doing it. This is how you do it with no authentication. And when I execute the step, this URL is basically designed to give output like this. So we have this data here. So we just output whatever you give it. So if we have an API key, something, I just put it in there, and city is going to be London. All right. So this is what I'm giving it as input. But the problem arises when we go to, for example, inspect. You can just right click and you can select inspect, and I then go to networks tab. Now networks tab will basically tell you how you're doing things here and how you're doing different requests and everything, and how things are looking here, what you're sending in the URL, what you're sending in the body and everything. Now if I clear this out, for example, if I clear this out now and I execute the step again, it will be executed again successfully like this. And when I go to the networks tab again, you can see we now have these different things now with the different names, obviously. If I, for example, go here, let me just make this bigger so you can see, and I go from headers to payload. Now the header, you can see this is the requested URL, and it's going to be with the status codes of 200 because we're getting the data, but we're just posting it. So it's going to be one method, you could say. So this is where we are now in the payload section. And when I go to workflows, my workflow name is 8. Obviously, you can now with the network tab, you can see whatever you want to see here. So we have a network tab, and this is the workflow 8. All right, you can see the workflow 8, and we have our nodes. So these are different nodes that we currently have. We have our basic trigger, and then we have another one after that, the HTTP request. If I go here, for example, so I have two nodes, right? So this is with index 0. So in programming, if you are a programmer, by the way, you would know that every index starts with 0. All right, so we start from 0 rather from 1. So we would go from 0, 1, 2, 3. So in indexes we would do something, the accounting will always start from 0, so just remember that. So that is why we have a 0 here and 1 here, because we have one parameter that we're passing from the node execution, which is the manual trigger that we have in the 0, and one is going to be the another HTTP request node. So we have a name here. We would have same the name for the manual trigger execution, obviously. And we have an ID. Now in this we have parameters, right? So this is the parameter we're sending. We have a URL, obviously. We have a send body. Now we are sending body, that is why it's true. Now it's in a Boolean way, because you have true and false, or in mathematical terms you would have 0 and 1. And if we are sending a body, for example, it will have true here, like we are sending body, so it's true. I know you probably don't have to go into much detail, but I'm just trying to explain things to so you can basically understand what's going on here. And if you want to test things out, and if you want to maybe do it in future, you would have absolutely clear understanding of what's going on here. So when we go to parameters, now we have body parameters. Now these are what we are sending here in the body parameters. All right, so this is what we're sending. So in body parameters, we have our parameters. Now we have name, and we have a value. All right, so name, the name is value, right? So we put value in it, so the name is value. And then we have a value, and in value I have put something. I think I just made it, the names too clear, but in name we have a name value, and in value we have our value, which is super secret 123, which is something I assume is going to be a secret. Let me just when I go here, and you can obviously see that in this parameter stage, in the 0 index, because now we have index this, and this is going to be in 0 index, we have a name, and you can clearly see the name is the value is representing this name section, and the super secret 123 is in value. So in value, anyone, if he wants to see or have any intentions of doing something bad, they can basically see that you have this value here, super secret 123. Now this is the problem, because and by the way, if you are doing this one node, you are, as I said in the start of the video, if you're doing this one node, you could basically doing it with every other node. Now how to fix it, to give it a shot, now how to fix that. Now it's super simple. You don't have to just go along and do a lot of different encryptions. You could just simply go along with this simple encryption, which is going to be generic credential type. You could maybe use, you can now use header auth. So it's going to be header authentication, and we can have our header auth. Now I've created these different auths for different purposes and tests. And when you're doing it, you basically come here, and I am going to um, take this value, super secret 123, and I don't want to send body now. I want to come here. I want to create a new credential. I want to name it value. Value. All right. I want to name it value. I'm gonna name it test 2, just for the purpose of simplicity. I think I'm gonna name it value. Now at the start of it, I'm gonna add bearer space. Okay, so it's super secret 123, and before that we have bearer space. Okay, I'm gonna click save, and I close it. No, we don't want to do it. All right, so you can see here we have a bearer and space. All right, so you can see clearly. When I go back, I have now header auth, which is going to be test 2. Okay, when I execute step now, you can see the step would still go through, the execution would be successful. But now when I go to inspect this, you can see when I go to inspect again, and I go to network tab, Let me clear this up and execute the workflow again so you can see clearly. And I execute the step. The node is executed successfully. This is again uh, the the payload that we're sending. So in the payload section, we are in the workflows now, and you can see we have nodes. So these are different parameters that we have. So we have different nodes. This is manual trigger, and then we have 0 and 1 indexes. As you remember, the 0 is for the manual trigger, and 1 is for the that we're sending. All right. Now here's an interesting part. We have our credentials, and credentials are going to be HTTP header auth. We're using header auth, as you remember. We are now using header authentication. Let me do that. We have header auth, obviously, and the name is test2. So it's assigned an ID here, and the name is HTTP request for the node, and we have an ID for this node, obviously, like we have before, for the manual trigger, obviously. But interesting thing is we have parameters. Now in parameters, you have URL, okay? And then authentication, you have generic credential type, but you cannot see what the secret value is, because now on the secret value, you have your authentication. We have our generic authentication of HTTP header auth, and the value is secretly stored in test2, and you cannot see it. All right, so this is the simple way that you can use to uh, to encrypt the secret value so no one else can have access. You can play along with the other encryption. Obviously, you can do a lot of different inscriptions here. You have better or you have different. But for this video, I'm just going to keep it to header auth. So you basically have something to play along with. So this is it from this video. If you have any questions, leave them down below in the comment section. I'll be happy to answer them. If you like this video, give this a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next video.